Good evening. How's everybody tonight? Dr. Wilson, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Do you have any family members with you here?
I believe my wife is here.
Okay, would you like to introduce her, please?
It's Felicia Wilson. I'm back here.
The children didn't come?
Emma is, first pitch happened 5 minutes ago. She's playing softball right now.
Okay.
And Paul has soccer practice in an hour, so my mother is going to be shuttling them back and forth. I
Okay.
hope. I hope she gets it right.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Before we get
And we
started.
also have a third child we can't forget.
Oh, okay.
She's a student at the University of New Orleans.
Okay, okay. Before we get started, we have several guests in the audience tonight that I'd like to recognize. First off, Dr. Hickman, I'm going to have to take you to dinner because the very first night I missed your name incorrectly, and then I was told it was Mr. Hickman, and now I have been told tonight that it's Dr. Hickman. So I apologize to you. I totally apologize. So I'll take you to dinner one night, okay, when my school board tenure's over with. Okay? Dr. Wilson, Dr. Hickman's picture's on the board over here. He is one of the very first school board members with Hoover City Schools, and he's attended all of the finalist interviews every night. So we also have Councilman John Lida in the audience, along with John Lida Sr. How are you doing? Admiral Natter, appreciate you being here with the council, and then Teresa Patelis sitting next to Admiral Natter. Anybody else? Jeremy Kruger, what are you doing here?
How are you?
Former Spelling Park assistant principal, now assistant principal in Mountain Brook. Glad to have you here. Just saw you. And then Dr. Reese, our interim superintendent. At this time, can we get you anything? Are you ready to get started? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. 1 second. The questions?
I can make a few up if you.
I'm sorry, here we go. I apologize. Dr. Wilson, you were given the questions, the 15 questions ahead of time, and at this time we're going to go ahead and get started. And if you have, if there's anything else, then we'll get going.
Ready to go?
Let's start with Mr. Cooper tonight. Mr. Cooper, you want to ask the first question?
Which one would you like to ask?
Anyone you want to.
The first one.
Well, welcome, Vic. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Did a little research on your website today and all, and you got a good thing going at Hartselle. Just kick it off by saying, what are your strengths and weaknesses as a superintendent? It's a list of lowball questions, you know.
I think my strengths are relationships. I like knowing as much as I can about individuals. Everybody has value and meaning, and if they know I care, then they'll work with me as we move forward. Communication, I try to be a good communicator. Oftentimes the biggest issue with communication is the illusion that it's being done, so it's very, very important that you work overtime on the communication aspect. I try to be a servant leader. People need to see me doing whatever it is that I ask them to do. At my heart, I'm a teacher, so I think teachers need to see me teaching at times as well.
Samford taught you right.
Yes, sir. I'm a proud double graduate of St. University. And then I think it's also a strength that I'm left-handed. So
I am too.
all those years of having to write across my paper, so I had to get that in. And of course, that's also one of my weaknesses.
Are you any good with left-handed layups?
I can do a left-handed layup. I was a basketball coach for a while, and just recently coached my 5th grade and 6th grade sons teams the last 2 years, and really got back into it. So when I grow up and retire, I'm probably going to go back into coaching basketball.
Good deal. Look, I know those are great strengths. We've all got weaknesses and things we can improve, and I'm sure you've been able to reflect a little bit in your tenure up there at Hartselle, as well as some experiences you've had both at Homewood and Mountain Brook. Are there any things that you see that you'd like to improve upon and you're cognizant of?
We all have things on which we need to improve. I get that. One of the things that I think is very important is that you focus and work on your strengths as much as you can, manage your weaknesses as much as you can. If anyone in the audience knows me, they're going to nod heavily, and when I say this weakness, I'm very ADHD. And I know that about myself, and I manage that as much as I can. I think that's both a strength and a weakness. And if I let it get out of control, it can be perceived as a weakness. I'm all over the place. I move around a lot. Oftentimes, my brain is moving on to the next thing, and the person with whom I'm speaking hasn't yet come to closure on it. So I have to be very intentional about making sure that the person is moving with me as we go through the conversation and the process. So that's one of them, which leads to the other one. Sometimes I'm impatient. So, you know, I want stuff to happen and let's get it done. I want to see results. I am getting better at both of them, though. I am. I think more of that learning has come as a parent with anything else.
Well, don't beat yourself up, because sometimes that weakness of impatience is also a strength.
It can be. It can be.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
Dr. Wilson, recently the governor signed a new bill, new code, where we authorize charter schools in the state of Alabama. And even since then, we just passed we have to be careful, it was there to be considered by the House, a virtual school bill that could be part of the same scenario. What are your thoughts on charter schools and how they would affect our state positively or negatively?
42 states have charter schools. Alabama's about to become the 43rd. And how that will impact us remains to be seen. As with public schools, there are charter schools that are successful and charter schools that are not successful. There are public schools that are successful and some that are not successful. The people that make up the organization are going to determine the success. The people that work in Hoover, live in Hoover, go to school in Hoover, the community at large, everybody being on the same page is how that question is going to be answered. Public schools are seen as a choice. If we in charter schools are seen as a choice. If we in public education provide that choice and provide opportunities, thinking outside the box, there won't be need for a charter school. So that's the way I look at it. I think it's going to be dependent on areas. Different areas will have things that they can provide that some public schools may not be able to provide or may not want to provide, quite frankly. So when I look at all that Hoover has to offer, when I look at the cultural activities around, when I look at the athletic, the artistic, the academic, everything that Hoover has to offer, I don't see anything that a charter school could offer that Hoover City Schools couldn't offer. So I think it really depends on how focused we are on our strengths and what we can do here for the students of Hoover.
Very good.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
I'm gonna come from question 9. And it's okay to give me theory on this, but I definitely want some examples as well. You know, in our system, we have some very strong teachers, strong educators, strong principals. They have their mind set up on what works best for their building. You know, students, they know parents, they know the entire theme of that particular feeder pattern. So saying that, describe me, name and describe a major decision where you and your staff or principal disagree upon it, but yet you found a resolve from it.
We have conversations all the time about things. We first of all, I applaud your leaders in the schools and teachers for having opinions and beliefs and standing up for those. We have to have those communications, those conversations. My first year as superintendent, we had our opportunity for the calendar, and I was thinking about how can we provide some flexibility in our calendar to give our teachers some embedded professional development. As you know, since 2008, we haven't been funded properly from the state with our professional development. It's essential that we have the professional development for our teachers, for our leaders, for everything. So I thought, how can we do that during the day? Because when you provide professional development during the day and you put an inordinate amount of subs in the classroom, you're not doing what your mission is in the beginning, which is to educate children with highly qualified teachers. So if you're in a catch-22, when you pull the teachers out, bring them to a location, hoping that the substitutes are able to carry on during that day. So we were thinking, how can we do that? How can we have the best of both worlds? And I thought, let's do this every quarter. Let's have an early release day whereby the kids can leave and we can have professional development at each school. Well, we had to think outside the box. Fritz Van Winkle fell asleep 20 years ago, or excuse me, in 1890, and woke up. Every organization that you can think of that he would see, he would not recognize, except for schools. They're still in rows, and they're still 20 to 25, and they're still from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, roughly. So I had to come up with an answer to that because our parents work. We have several single parent, we have several two-family working parents. So what are we going to do with the students? You can't have elementary children, middle school children going home to an empty nest. So we came up with an idea where we'd have a blended early release. We'd run the buses at the end of the day, and we would have kids stay from 12 to 3 on those days. There's a lot of disagreement on that. I was told by the unmovables, it'll never work. I was told by some who love to change every day that, oh yeah, this will be cool. And I knew the answer was somewhere in the middle. But we would never figure out if it worked unless we tried it. So we did. Got input, got a committee together, talked to parents. We went through the whole gamut. Our whole calendar process was based on this idea that we had to see if we could recapture some professional development without impacting instruction. We have 6 schools. It worked very well in 3 schools. It worked okay in 1 school, and it wasn't working very well at all in the other 2 schools. Parents were unhappy, teachers were unhappy, principals were unhappy, everybody was unhappy. So the idea was, what are we going to do now? This unhappiness came about mid-October, November. We knew, and I'm sitting here going, okay, we've got to fix this. So got the team back together, and we reevaluated what we were doing. We eliminated half the early release days for second semester moving forward, and it ended up being a wonderful learning opportunity for all of us. We all got together. We realized that it's a valuable idea. Our next year program, or excuse me, our next year school calendar has the idea built in once per quarter now, as opposed to twice per quarter, with opportunities. The buses will run earlier, and the parents will be able to pick the children up, and we will still have our extended day earlier in the day so that those parents can still have their children there. So it ended up being something that, an idea that we thought was good, wasn't good, because we did a ready, fire, aim, which at times you have to do that. We tweaked it. We made a change right in the middle of the year. People, the same people who said you wanted to change said, well, you can't change it now, we're in the middle of the year. I said, it's not good for kids. We can't keep doing something. And I received a lot of feedback, positive and negative, about that. Most of it was about the idea of, you realized an idea you had wasn't working, so you fixed it. So we did that. It brought us closer together as a team too. It also let them understand that their ideas were very, very important. It wasn't me as a superintendent coming in with this new idea, let's go do it. And I got 7 or 8 yes people to go, that's great. It ended up being, how can we make it better? We're excited about what's happening next year with it, because it's going to offer that opportunity for the professional development without impacting instruction, and we'll still be cognizant of those children that need somewhere to go.
Dr. Wilson, how do you envision your role, relationship with our city leaders?
The relationship between the superintendent and the city leaders is essential. Hoover needs a wonderful school system, and a wonderful school system needs a strong city government. The two must work together. It's essential. There's no gray in that. We've got to be able to communicate openly, honestly. We've got to be able to figure out where common ground exists. We've got to figure out how to help each other. We've got to figure out how to put the needs of the children, 14,000 or so, in Hoover ahead of politics on either side. So we have to be able to work together. I have reached across, I've had a wonderful relationship in my 2 years in Hartselle with the city government. Mayor Hall has done a fabulous job. Councilman Smeltzer and all the city councilmen have done a fabulous job. And our board has done the same. We work very well together. A lot of things that are occurring are because of our relationship together. We're working together to help bring businesses. We understand that. It's my role to try to recruit not only businesses, but leaders. When we found out Polaris is coming to Limestone County, I want Polaris families to live in Hartselle. Well, if somebody builds a company in Shelby County or Northern Jefferson County or Tuscaloosa County or Lincoln with a Honda plant, whatever they do, we want people living in Hoover. I want people to come to Hoover, and we want to be able to educate their children. We want the best and brightest to come in there. So I think working together does that.
Sure.
Are you currently working on any relationships with the city council? Or
We are.
city
We're working.
for workforce development or career tech
Workforce development.
programs?
One of the things about workforce development is every region has excellent data. Center on Workforce Development will get you the data for your region of what your kids need to be doing. Of course, I want to work with city leaders and with you guys, with our principals, with everybody involved, parents, about what are opportunities for our children here. We're working on, we have welding back in school in Hartselle. We have 2 exits, exit 325 and exit 328 in Hartselle, that are underutilized. Our mayor and city council would like to explore opportunities for that, so we're helping them. We have wonderful brand new soccer facilities. If anybody's a soccer parent, you know that lots of people come to soccer games. The Jack Allen complex in Decatur isn't big enough to host. Well, hopefully we could host it down there, and guess what? We might build a Hampton Inn, or we might build something on that exit that helps increase revenue coming into Hartselle. And that's a win-win situation for both. The mayor and I, and the city council right now are working on a tax renewal. And we're all on the same page, and that's important. It would not have worked had we worked in a vacuum. The Board of Education and the superintendent cannot work in a vacuum and then hope the city leaders are going to say, well, we trust you 100%. We agree. That's not real life. We want to work together so that when opposition or when questions arise, we all can answer that openly and honestly because we've had those conversations. The biggest thing we're doing, Mr. Murphy, is the tax. It's essential. It's huge for Hartselle.
You mentioned welding. I understand you guys or your students participate in Career Academy, or have the option to do that. Can you explain a little bit what that looks like?
Randy, our principal, Jeff Heitch, fabulous instructional leader, does an excellent job. Heart for children and a heart for what I believe is the way to go in education, which is personalizing learning as much as you can. Anybody who has more than one child understands that they're different. They have different desires, different wants, different needs, different ways of learning the same subject that everybody's taking. So to that end, we started looking for ways to offer opportunities for kids to explore 9 through 12 prior to making a decision and wandering around in freshman year of college, or a gap year not going to college, or some lost year for parents. Let them explore those opportunities in high school. Dr. Weiss has given us the template. The diploma options we have, you can pick and choose and put together the best curriculum, the best opportunity, the best 4-year plan based on your desires. We have children that are taking welding. When they graduate, they'll have 1 year of college at Calhoun, certified. They're going to come out, instead of making $15 to $20 an hour, they're going to be making $25 to $30, and some of them quite a bit more. Welders can make a very good living, and along the Tennessee River corridor, Dyking, ULA, there's so many, Nucor Steel, there's so many businesses up there that need welders. Well, guess what else they need? They need pipe fitters. So guess what we're looking for now? A pipe fitting instructor. So we'll do anything to help find enough kids. We've got the space, so we'll do it. We have a teaching academy, we have a business academy, we have technology, and probably our best and oldest is the Health Occupational Academy. Last year we had a young lady who was a senior, going to be a nurse. She was going to be a nurse. They get to go and work for a whole year in a hospital. She was helping deliver a child, passed out. Guess what? I can't be a nurse. She found out as a senior in high school, before she was paying 2 years of school, for mom and dad to realize that she needs to go into a different branch of the medical field. And that's what she's doing, and she's very happy about that. So if we can provide opportunities like that, and there's nothing that says we can't, there's nothing that says we can't do that. That's to get back to Mr. Kelly, your question. A charter school, giving flexibility, we've got it. All we have to do is ask for it. Dr. Bias has been very clear. If you need flexibility, write a waiver. We'll figure it out. We're going to do what's in the best interest of kids. And the control of educating children resides with U5 and the superintendent and everybody behind us. That's where the heart of education lies. And we can't relinquish that control.
I understand your district allows children to come from outside the zone district if they pay tuition, which must say a lot about your system that you, is that true?
That's correct. We have about 3,050 children, students in our district, and about 550 are out-of-district kids.
That says a lot for your district.
It says a lot for Hartselle. Hartselle does a fabulous job. They were doing a fabulous job well before I got there. They'll be doing a fabulous job long after I'm gone. That's a wonderful place to educate children, to have a family. They got it right in 1975 when they broke away and became a district. That first board, Dr. Carlton Smith, who many of you may know, he later came as superintendent here at Vestavia. They did a lot of good things when they put that plan together. A lot of good things that are still going on.
Mr. Presley?
Dr. Wilson, why are you interested in being the superintendent of Hoover City Schools?
We lived here for 16 years and loved it. We lived in Bluff Park. Loved Bluff Park. When I was, I guess we've been there about 5 years, and I approached Mr. Craig and I said, I've got a great idea. I want you to make Bluff Park K through 12 school and just leave us alone. I love Bluff Park.
I thought that was Stephen's idea.
Well, it's a great idea. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm sort of kidding.
I like it.
Well, it is, yeah, we lived here for 16 years. Our oldest child is a student at the University of New Orleans. She went through Bluff Park, Simmons, and Hoover. Now granted, she's a pretty smart girl. She takes after her mother and really is very intelligent. At the end of this semester, 1 year, at the end of the semester, she will be one class short of being a junior. And you don't think Dad likes that? And that came from Hoover. That's because of people like Brad Coltrane. That's because of people like Don Hewlin. That's because of people like Holly Sutherland, who's moved on. But that's because of people like Brian Kane, the people at David Fancher, who I understand sadly has retired. That's why I want to be a part of that. I want to be back here and lead and be a part of what I know to be a great education. You don't know what you've got until it's gone in terms of living here. And we landed in a fabulous place. Don't get me wrong. We love Hartselle. My kids love Hartselle. My wife loves Hartselle. This is a tough decision. But Hoover's just one of those places that I feel like I'm getting an opportunity just in talking to you guys to come back and articulate what a great place this is. Now I know you know that. I mean, you're the board members and you study the data and you see it, but I see it outside too. National, state, and local rankings are not lost on me. I understand that of the top 4 schools in the state of Alabama for value, Hoover's in the top 4 and Hartselle's in the top 4, according to niche.com. That says a whole lot to the stakeholders, the leaders, the citizens, everybody in Hoover. That to me is what you really want to tout. Not only do we do a great job with all of our metrics, and I can stand here and give you all the educational E's you want me to give you, but it really boils down to what kind of value are you getting? What kind of value are you getting? I paid $500 first semester for Daly's first semester. That's it. For some fees, I guess. That's it. And I attribute that right back to Hoover. So I want to be a part of that. Again, I've been a part of it as a parent. I've been able to see that, live that, enjoy that, embrace that. Now I'd like to be a part of it as a leader.
Do you have any concerns going from a system of, I think you said 3,500, is that right?
3,050.
A little over 3,000 to a little over 14,000?
Yes, I do a pretty good job of remembering a lot of kids' names, but it's hard to remember the adults. So I look at it as I'm going from about 360 employees to about 1,500 employees. So, you know, it's a bigger system. I get that. People are people. I really don't have any concerns. I've been in every nook and cranny of Hoover, just because I love to travel around and see places. I've been lost in places and figured my way out. So, you know, when they blocked off the cut through to Spain Park High School by the golf course, I had to figure out how to get out of there. So, I love this big, sprawling suburban area. 17 schools, each one of them has its own unique character. You have to embrace that. I really don't think I don't really have any major concerns. My concerns are just it's a bigger place. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper?
I figured, you know, you have a little history here, and you've probably done a little research, so I did a little research on Hartselle, and I'm not gonna answer the question, but I'm gonna ask the question after I preface it with this. I looked at your 2015 strategic plan and the identified challenges you guys have and identified. And again, these are not answers to the question I'm about to ask you, but I thought they were very interesting and had some correlation perhaps. We have never done this before, never done it this way before. Too much expected of schools not related to academics, and we'll probably address that in another question later on. And a percentage of parents who are not technically savvy. And those are fairly common challenges. But in your research, updated research on Hoover, what do you see our three challenges, primary challenges as being?
I think the primary three challenges for Hoover, one is, these are all not necessarily just related to Hoover, a couple of them are, okay, because public education in general has a PR issue, if you will, a trust issue. And Hoover has that too. We've got to make sure that we establish trust with everyone. Hartselle has it. People just don't trust us because they hear so much negative about us. We've got to flip that and make sure that we're putting out as much as we can about what we're doing well. I'm sending out press releases left and right. We had 50 children who are going to be in Panoply, which is a wonderful art show in Hartselle this weekend. I'm proud to say my son's going to have a piece of art in that too. We have 50 children that are going to have pieces of art up there. We're the only system outside Madison County that has any artwork in there. You're exactly right. I'm going to make sure everybody knows that. It was in the paper today about it. Now, they may have buried it, but I'm going to get it out. I'm going to tweet it. I'm going to make sure the good news gets out. I'm going to make sure the good news gets out. And that's what we have to do, is to flip that so that people understand all the great things that are going. We can't sit back and go, we're good. We know we're good. People will come to us. It's not Field of Dreams, okay, in that regard, until we put the work on the front end to build it. So we have to do that. I think the second challenge is to make sure that our relationship with city government is productive and moves us forward. We can disagree on things, but we have to get together so that we can agree to disagree on those things and then agree on things that can help both groups move forward. I think that's essential. We have to do that. And the third thing is the budget. And again, the budget comes back from a macro. It's not just Hoover. Everywhere. Since 2008, we had a $6.5 billion budget in the ETF, y'all. 6.5. This year, the proposed budget is 5.9. we have a catch-22 of immense proportions. Since 2008 to 2015, systems across this state have continued to get excellent results with less money. Excellent results with less money. Anybody who runs a household knows there's going to come a tipping point at which you can't continue to do that. I took an economics class, and there's probably a term for that. I don't know. I'm kidding. But you can't continue to produce extra, wonderful, great, and constantly have to rely on zero funding for library enhancement, zero funding for professional development, zero funding for common purchases, and $300 for classroom supplies. That's all we get, $310. So how do you combat that? Superintendents and boards of education have to be careful and have to be intentional about creating funding streams, community partnerships, grant writing. You have to do those things. Hoover does a fabulous job. 11 state and national winners for Teachers of the Year. 11, that's fabulous. I know that process, and I know that process very well. You've got great teachers, but you also know how to write wonderful biographies and grants and answer those questions. Apply that same process to other grants where money's available. We can find those ways. There's a grant available a month and a half ago, came across my desk, handed it to a special education coordinator. I said, here, nothing ventured, nothing gained. She came back to me last week and said, we just got $41,000. Now, in a budget of $148 million, I get that's probably $41,000 is going to make a huge difference in our ability to meet the needs of our special education students. You can talk to anybody in special education at Hoover, talk to Don Healy and Ken Jarnigan or anyone. $41,000 would help meet the needs of whatever subset of kids it was able to meet. So that's something that's very important. We've got to go out and do that. We've got to be able to say, okay, we're going to work, we're going to be proactive, not reactive about the funding streams, and we're going to figure out how to try to get them to fund it properly. I'm down there, I'm talking to the legislatures, I'm the legislature and the legislators, I'm talking to people and say, please make sure you fund it, please make sure you fund it. At the same time, I'm back home working on, okay, let's see if we can partner with this company to do this, let's see if we can partner with this company to do this, let's see if we can find this grant to do this. It's just what we have to do.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, and this is not really a catch-22 question, it's more of a personal philosophy, and I know you've got one because everybody in education's got one. Parents drop their kids off and say, here, you got my kid all day, teach them, educate them, you know, it's your responsibility, I'll pick them up, or you bus them home and you're done. And yet, at the end of the day, some are minimally involved, and others just absolutely, fundamentally don't trust any aspect about the school district to include the classroom teacher. How do you go at that? I mean, this is not related to this necessarily. I'm enjoying hearing your.
That is one of the most difficult questions because we have children in the state of Alabama that the only meal they get is in the middle of the day. And if you serve a breakfast, they get that one too. And we're fortunate that we have teachers and leaders in every school that love those kids unconditionally. Work with them, try to, you can't teach a child, okay, until that child feels safe, feels loved, feels respected. Once you got all that in place, and that happens early here, okay? It happened in first grade, kindergarten at Bluff Park with my 3 children, and it happens with all children. And my wife and I were involved, not overly involved, but we were involved. Some parents, if the child is just fortunate to have a parent that's able to be at everything, that's wonderful. Teachers have to do as much as they can to make sure that those children feel loved, nurtured, and are given opportunities. It's very difficult. It's probably the most difficult thing teachers face.
I agree. Yeah, and I'm just curious on a personal level because by and large, I can make a blanket statement and say that teachers and administrators, they all give above and beyond. The whole notion you're 9-month employees, teachers is absolutely a joke. And things going outside the classroom that you just can't really imagine. And yet, I guess as being a professional educator, people that you just have to suck up and move on because you can only do so much and change the culture and paradigm situations that, you just can't really affect.
Yeah, it's one of the most difficult things that teachers face.
And then it gets back to morale issues, so it's really important as a superintendent that you keep them uplifted as well and motivated.
As much as you can, that's right.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, I looked at some of your figures. Do you have you don't have any Title I schools?
We do, we have two.
Are you treating this school-wide, or are you targeting funding?
They're both school-wide.
School-wide. So you've got experience dealing with that funding system and
Yes.
worked well there?
I have experience because we have one of the best Title I directors and a wonderful CSFO that are very intelligent and do a great job. I teach myself what I need to know, I gather that input, and then make a decision. One of the things that you have to do is rely on the people around you to do their job. If they're not doing their job, then that's where I have to step in. But if they are doing their job, I'm not going to micromanage them. I'm a big fan of Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote a great book called Team of Rivals. I've read all the educational books, and I read stuff all the time. I read, but I like books about leadership because that's where people see me as a leader. I have to be a leader. I have to be able to motivate people. I have to be able to manage people. I have to be able to figure out what the strengths and weaknesses are. If you have not read Team of Rivals, it's about the job that Abraham Lincoln had to do with a cabinet that many of whom hated him, some of whom actively opposed him. And he brought them together and used their strengths to lead the country through a very, very dark period of time during that time. So that's a great one. I look at what FDR did with his kitchen cabinet. I look at what great leaders do, and they rely on the expertise of others. I'm quite certain that's what many of you do as business people. You figure out who does great things well in your company, and you allow them to blossom and do their job. So,
That's good to know.
and Mr. Cooper, back to you. I appreciate you seeing our strategic plan. We have spent an entire year on that. It has been one of the best processes. It was wonderful. We had an external facilitator that we hired and an internal facilitator who truly.
Who's the external?
We used a gentleman by the name of Byron Hedrick who works for a company called Lean Frog. And then we have an assistant principal, and Ms. Bittner, who has been there 30 years and has done a fabulous job. She's valuable.
It's a real process, but the outcomes are so powerful.
And we had well over 2,200 responses. It was a wonderful process.
It was a phenomenal amount of responses you guys had, 2,000 plus. And we do climate surveys and everything around here, and it's like pulling teeth trying to get, a high percentage of the community and
Correct.
other stakeholders involved.
We call that the 95-5 rule. 95% issues you face will come from 5% of constituency.
We're aware of that.
We just assume 95% satisfied.
What would you say is the underlying reason why you have so much participation in the survey reports?
I think it goes back to, it's a close-knit community. They truly value the educational system. They understand how important the education is to the town and to their children and to themselves. They have a very good mix of people that grow up and go to school and leave, and people that grow up and come back. It's a unique thing today, especially in a small town. There are about 14,500 people in Hartselle, and that's just something they've always done. They've always been passionate about academics and athletics, and now they're becoming more passionate about the arts. And depending on this time of the season, they'll tell you whether they're more passionate about academics or athletics. I'm the first to admit that as well. So, but I just attribute it to a mindset. I've always had.
Coach Booth got a game tomorrow night, I guess?
Yes, sir. I'll be going back from here to Coleman to watch Hartselle and Coleman play.
I really admire him. He is a great leader, and I've officiated a lot of his games.
It really is.
Yeah, first class.
Mr. Kelly?
That was me, sorry. Dr. Wilson, who expects and demands excellence in everything we do? Our stakeholders do, we do as a board, and our leadership that exists in this office. how would you balance the arts, athletics, all activities outside, academics? How would you balance all that, and give it all the attention required?
You have to celebrate everything. You have to celebrate small successes. You have to celebrate big successes. You have to celebrate things that children do that they love doing. Because if there are children that love doing it, that means there's an adult who's facilitating their love of that and helping with that. I would love to see a bigger presence of Hoover and Spain Park at the Bluff Park Art Show. At times I saw Simmons Band. I'd love to see student art there. I'd love to see something we did at Mountain Brook, was we had an art show, and the students were able to sell their art. Now you've really got a hook with students, because now you can say, wait a minute, you really want to buy my art? Oh, and you'll pay that much? Yeah. Well, now you have to tell that child, what's your business model? And you bring in that business and show them that. It's more difficult to get into Stanford University's Masters of Fine Arts program than it is for their MBA, because thought leaders are looking for people who can use both sides of their brain, and someone who can put the business acumen with the artistic acumen, using that both sides of the brain, that whole mind thinking. Valuable people, you really are. You have to make sure that you have opportunities for children to showcase what it is that they do. If we have a jazz choir, jazz band ensemble at Berry Middle School, they need to have an opportunity to showcase what they can do. If we have a chess team at Brock's Gap, we need to be able to make sure that that chess team has an opportunity to shine. We started a math team at Hartselle Intermediate School. They placed in 4 out of the 5 events they attended. First time they'd ever done that. Well, one of them was down here against Bazitz and Simmons and some of the big, they call them the big schools, the big over the city schools and everything. And our kids, Hartselle's kids, did remarkably well. Remarkably well. I knew they would. The teachers knew they would. The kids now know they can. They're going to demand it. We started a robotics team. They went to University of Alabama's robotics competition last week, won it. And yes, Mountain Brook was in it. And Hartselle beat Mountain Brook. Okay, so we're proud of that fact. We are, and our kids are getting to do things that we're right in the middle of the cyber hub right there at Huntsville with Research Park and everything. These kids are going to have opportunities to come back, work, and live. Hopefully go to engineering school, maybe at Auburn, hopefully at Alabama. I'm kidding. You have to celebrate those successes, Mr. Kelly. That's what you have to do. And you've also got to demand excellence as you're doing it. Don't accept the mediocrity. You have to demand excellence, and I think that happens at high levels. One thing I would love to see is a higher number of national merit semifinalists and finalists. I think we have the 14,000 students, 2 high schools. I think there are opportunities there. Have a number of children in at Hoover and Spain Park who could do that. And what that does for a child really is monumental for the next level. Our ACT here is 23 and some change. I think it's right about 23 at Hoover and right about 23 and a half at Spain Park. We're constantly going to want to chip up, move up on that with everything we do. Same thing with our ACT Aspire data. Everything we do, we want to constantly have a trajectory that's moving up. And when we don't, we have the data to show, and we can have conversations, collaborate, figure out where did we miss, what happened.
Do you guys use the ACT student suite of assessments?
We do. You have no longitudinal data. Anybody that tells you they've got a good handle on the ACT Aspire, wait a minute, stop. No, you don't. We went from ARP to ARP Plus to ACT in a 3-year period. That skews all your data.
There's no correlation?
There's no correlation. And they can tell you there's a crosswalk, and there is a crosswalk, and that's where you get into you need to get some waders on and figure out what you're doing with that. I tell our, everywhere I've ever been, our teachers, our parents, our principals, if we teach to the standards, whatever assessment we take that's summative will take care of itself. If we teach to the standards, we teach to fidelity, the standards, everything, and I believe that strongly right here. 100%. You teach to those standards. There's too many good teachers not to. Teach to the standards, and everything else will take care of itself. And we'll score well on everything. Most certainly will.
I gotta tell you a war story, and it's not how smart I am, it's what I've learned from my wife. Elementary school principal, local district, top elementary scores in the district, and all of a sudden we went from ARM to Aspire. No correlation. She couldn't understand it. Went to the ACT Aspire conference. They had several around the state. The ACT people said, "You probably don't realize this, but over 50% of the questions on Aspire are level 3 in the Web's depth of knowledge," which is a very complex thought process, and most teachers, hers included, did not realize that. And while they're teaching the standard, that whole notion of levels of knowledge and how to process information and all that it was just not at the level and intensity it should be. So they had to adjust that. And so ACT transition from ARC has been a challenge for everyone.
If you can take, I don't really want to go into a lot of deep theory, but if you can take Bloom's taxonomy and then the Sammer model for the same type of taxonomy for technology and everything, the utilization of technology, put the two together, kind of dovetail it, and as you do it, and move children and adults, because we're all lifelong learners, if you can move us up, move everyone just up, chip up, move just a little bit up the taxonomy, what you're going to get is a deeper understanding of whatever it is that you happen to be doing. So that's kind of what the CCRS does for us, particularly in English and math. So it is a deeper. I came home last year, my son was a 5th grader, and he was doing some math, and he was struggling with it, and it was division, and I'm sitting here helping him thinking, this is way too much like Andy Griffith, trying to help over here. So I said, here, do this and this, and you do that right there. And he looked at me and he said, well, Daddy, that's a strategy I've never considered. And I'm like, who are you, and what have they done with you? That's a strategy I've never considered. And I went back to his math teacher, and I said, thank you for teaching Paul that there's more than one way to get to that answer. And because when I was in school, if I didn't do it the exact way that Miss Fine wanted me to, and she's a fabulous math teacher, Miss Fine, if you're watching, I apologize, but she's a but I had to do it that way. And I have the right answer, but I'd miss a few steps, and I'd get counted off. Well, today, kids can get to that as long as they can explain why they've done that. So that's...
Well, good for you. I'd have told them to log on to Khan Academy and figure it out.
Well, I was impressed with that.
You talked about ranking, whether based on different publications, and a lot of times, ranking, regardless of where it comes from, that becomes a venue where folks use to gauge the school system online. You know, Hoover has a lot of great value here, and a lot of times things are not apples to apples in comparison. You talk about PR, which relates to me thinking outside the box, doing those extra things. In saying that with testing alone, we have state and federal testing. That goes out, X school over here is performing at this rate, people believe it, they don't really care about what's going on in the arts and everything else. What internal parameters have you set up in Hartzell that you can utilize to get out per PR, via PR, to benefit this district?
Well, I would say the utilization of formative assessments. If you're using Global Scholar, you can build your own formative assessments along the way. You get each group, if you're in the PLC model, whatever you're using, whatever the collaborative groups you're using, if it's all 3rd graders at Bluff Park, or all, 3rd grade teachers at Bluff Park, or 3rd grade teachers. Now granted, you're going to want, you got to have the vertical and the horizontal alignment. I get that. If a parent comes and drops Johnny off, and he's going to Greystone Elementary, and Johnny's first cousin's going to Bluff Park, there is a very real understanding that what he learns at 3rd grade at 1 is the same standards. They'll be taught in different manners based on the teacher, but it's the same standards at both schools. Okay, you gotta have that. Well, that doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Those teachers have to collaborate, and they have to build in instructions along the way so that they can assess where their children are along the way. That's the assessment for learning, not the assessment of the learning. All these state and federal tests is simply a data point that says, here's what they know based on this right here. That's an assessment of learning, not for learning. That doesn't inform the teacher along the way. So that's why I say, if we'll teach to the standards, that stuff will take care of itself. Now, how do we know we're teaching to the standards? That goes back to those formative pieces. And we talk constantly. We talk constantly about formative. Formative assessment happens in a 15-minute time period. From 1 to 5, let me know if you understand what we're talking about. Everybody hold your hand up. Teacher can see exactly. The 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. I need to reteach that. Let me go back over that. Having an I can statement on the board. And yes, we have high school classes that have I can statements on the board. It amazes me that we expect kids to come in and read our minds as teachers about what we're going to be doing in class that day. They need to understand, when I come in here today, that's what's going to happen. Well, if I'm walking out and I can't, there's got to be a relationship. There's got to be some understanding from the teacher to the student of how we fix that issue. Global Scholar is an excellent way to use that. You can build your own test. Give them any marker you want. You can give them every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, every what, and it just happens in class. It's not something that, okay, everybody stop, turn the bells off, we're testing. No, it's just something that's happening, and it can be happening in Ms. Frazier's class today, and all the history teachers are doing it today, and you get back and you look and go, okay, you did a better job of teaching the war, and my kids did a better job on the social history. Let's talk. What are we doing? What are we doing and I'm not doing? Well, when these teachers are talking about it, when they're getting back together, when they're figuring it out, kids are going to learn at higher levels. And the best part is, they're the ones that built those assessments, not an outside entity. And I am not in any way saying anything bad about the ACT suite of assessments, because ACT has the longest history. The longitudinal data on ACT, that data are very clear. Okay, it goes back well back into the 50s in terms of excellent outcomes, and those outcomes being predictive. Okay, the Global Scholar is a way to do that. You can use it as a diagnostic. That's another way you can do that. You can give a diagnostic test when Johnny walks in the building. When Johnny walks into class, the teacher could give a final. If I give all 5 of you a final, Mr. Cooper, you ace it and got everything, and you have everything.
Somebody's shooting.
You may know. That may be something good for you. Do I need to find a way to accelerate you? I probably do. Why have we not accelerated you in the past? Because we don't know what to do. There's 4 questions that undergird everything I believe about education. What do we want students to learn? That's the standards. These questions, it doesn't matter what new program comes around. These questions, when you strip away all the other stuff, when you talk about the next big thing, you buy this, you do this, what do we want students to learn? That's the standards. A teacher has to know his or her standards. Number 2, how do we know when they learned it? That's the assessment piece. That's the assessment piece. For too long, we've given assessments in the exact same way. We've got to figure out how to better utilize the assessment and to give students credit for the work that they know and they do. Number 3 is, what do we do when they don't know it? Well, that's the RTI model. That's our response to intervention. Number 4 is the one that educators around the world can't answer. Pardon me. We have a harder time answering it. But what do we do when they already know it? What do we do when a child walks into our room and he's just going to be a compliant A getter? He's going to get the A, but there's no engagement, none whatsoever. We haven't challenged that child. We haven't put that child in a better class, one that's more suited to his or her needs. So that's the question we have to answer, and that's the question that can totally change the Rip Van Winkle model that he looks at a school and says, well, I really didn't, that doesn't look like a school. Because you've got different configurations, you've got different groupings in there. You've got kids who are taking this part of this test, or this part of this class, and this part of this class. There's nothing that says a child that moves to us from Louisiana has to take Algebra 1 year and Algebra 2 next year because Louisiana has a different schedule or sequence. That child's good enough, we can compact that. Take Algebra 1 first semester and Algebra 2 the second semester. Take it concurrently if you need to. It all depends on the child, and it depends on what we're willing to do as educators to help those students. So that does scare a lot of educators because it's different.
What do you guys do anything from K through 2 assessment?
Our K through 2 assessment is all utilized. We have a couple of different, it goes through the curriculum we use. So we don't have a national or state assessment that we use. But most of it's global scholar.
Yeah. Any internal challenges where you sit in getting all this assessment data adopted and implemented and supported by all your faculty and staff?
Again, that goes back to
Individuals?
40 years of commitment to excellence and commitment to high standards at Hartselle. They've always done well on tests, well on national and state indicators. Always have, always will. And I believe that. I really do.
A good culture to work.
It really is. It's good culture.
Mr. Murphy?
And that's why I think Hoover has got that same mindset. We're right here, and we just have, there's 14,000. It's harder to get all 14,000 moving in the direction that it is, and that kind of answers your question earlier. So it'd be a little bit more legwork.
Mr. Murphy probably correct me. How many languages, Mr. Murphy? 42. Dr. Dodson can explain. 42 different languages we know that are spoken or different groups here. And it's a challenge, of course, to understand what you said, where a student is when he enters our school system, and then it understands how to speak a language correctly, get them up to speed where they can learn, at the same time take care of the children that aren't held back. I think our district does an excellent job of doing that. What could you share that happens in your district?
One of the things that's always been a constant in education is time. That time is always, the constant has always been, we have school starting in August, we end in May. We started around 7:45 and ended 3:15-ish. That's not written in law anywhere, first of all. Now, granted, there's been a couple of calendar things, but you can, again, write waivers and not let time be that constant. So you can work to get kids in and out earlier, before, after. You can really think about accelerating the curriculum for certain children, offering remedial help for certain children. One of the things that I think would help is to have a better assessment with not necessarily a strengths finder type thing, but there's a diagnostics given in the 8th grade called the Hoover assessment. And it tells children where some of their abilities lie, some of their strengths and things that they might like to do. Let's have a conversation with those children. You've now got a perfect opportunity as they begin to think about their 4-year plan. And it's important that you let the parents and children know you're not building your 4-year plan for you. It can change. But based on what you like to do, how about a coursework that looks like this? So you do want to be a nurse. Well, here's some opportunities for you to take that will help you do this. Oh, you want to be a doctor. Well, why aren't you taking biology? You're going to need that. You're going to need anatomy. You're going to need those types of conversations. And it's not that it's a good idea to have conversations with children. It's essential. There has to be someone that has a conversation with children on a regular basis to check up. Daley Wilson would not be at the University of New Orleans if it had not been for Miss Bond, Holly Southern at Hoover High School. She had no idea where she truly wanted to go, and she walked in there, told her what she wanted to do. The next thing I know, I'm taking a trip to New Orleans to check out the University of New Orleans, and all I'm thinking is, oh my goodness, that place floods. I don't necessarily want my daughter
I'm
down
glad
there.
that's all you
Yeah,
thought about.
I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, it's a place called Bourbon Street and other things, I don't want, and then I started realizing she can handle it, she's, I'm sure a young lady, but that's where she wanted to go. Had it not been for that conversation and that relationship with those individuals, they would have made it. So it goes back to personalizing education as much as you can for students. Knowing as much as you can about them so that you can help them figure out what it is they like to do. That was a little Led Zeppelin ramble on the question, I apologize.
Dr. Wilson, as our new superintendent and leader of our great school district, how would you initially approach your new position?
I would look, listen, and learn. Some things would take a year, some things would take 6 months, some take 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, depending on the process and what I'm trying to find out, what I'm trying to see. But I would definitely want to get to know as many people as I could, as quickly as I could. Obviously, you would meet with your administrative staff. This transition occurs during the summer. You'd meet with them. You'd meet with your central office staff. You'd make sure that we're all on the same page. Then I would do a needs assessment, and I would do an assessment of everything we do. The budget at Hearts on the budget at Hoover are different in size. They're not different in the fact that you've got to balance them. All budgets are the same in that regard. So you've got to look at things and find out what we're doing, why are we doing it, can we do it better? If we're not, great job, let's keep doing what we're doing. So that's what you have to do. I would love to do a facilities assessment to find out where we stand there. I'd love to do an academic assessment, find out where we do it, where we stand there. I would definitely talk with Dr. Dodson, find out what our plans are, what our trajectories are, everything we're doing academically. I would talk to Mary Veal and see what we're doing in talent management, how we are recruiting, hiring, growing, and retaining the best possible staff. And make no bones about it. We're not going to wait for people to come to us. We're going to go get people. I look at the year, a new year in August with new teachers, the exact same way Nick Saban and Gus Malzahn look at the recruiting class. Look how many 5-stars we got. That's what I want. I want the best. And once we've recruited them, we got to grow them. That's the professional development aspect. Okay, we got to hire them, then we got to grow them, and we got to retain them. Got to keep them. And that goes back to your comment about morale. Very important, giving them opportunities to grow. So I would do all of those things. I would also make sure that I was able to meet as many people as I could, all stakeholders, community, students, all faculty, staff. Quite a few things that I would do that would be systematic, that would be, process oriented. I want to make sure that I go through each, that goes back to the assessment of each different department. And then I would also make sure that I have met with and understand the budgetary concerns that we have, whatever they may be.
Can you get the teachers back from Mountain Brook that Jeremy and Amanda have taken from us?
I was coming back from,
This ought to be interesting.
Yes, really.
I was coming back from an interview
Just close your ears, Jeremy.
that we had just hired somebody. I just offered a job to someone at Simmons. I was at Mountain Brook, and my daughter was in the 5th grade and was going to Simmons the next year. And the one thing she wanted to be in was choir. And I had just hired a choir teacher from Simmons. And she wouldn't speak to me at church. Quite a few other people at church, we went to Shady Crest Baptist, and they were really upset with me. And I said, it's my job to go after good people, not my job to keep them. So that's still my job. And I would love to make Jeremy and Amanda worry a little bit over there. So when I got hired at Mountain Brook, Amanda Hood is one of those people that I had on my list. If I ever had an opportunity, I'd go and try to work with her. I want to hire people that other people want. You want people that that other people want. You want people that can be hired and stolen from you and taken, because those are great people to have around. Then you gotta figure out a way to make them stay.
Mr. Presley?
Mr. Kelly asked a question, or a statement that said that our city and our stakeholders not only expect excellence, but they demand it. You've talked about standards and how there are ways that we could raise our ACT scores. You talked about the need, or how it would be nice to have more national merit finalists and semifinalists. You present us with 4 questions that need to be answered. How do we do that and balance the budget each year?
You've got to, planning first of all. Planning never stops, ever. I'm already thinking about next year's budget, and I'm not talking about Hartzell's or Hoover's. I'm talking about the ETF. I'm trying to think down the road. I have to be 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead in my mind, so that I can have those conversations with our CSFO and with our principals. Our principals have to be the same way. We have to look at our staffs. We have to see what the staff looks like. We have to understand everything we can, without a crystal ball, about what's gonna happen in the future, as much as we can. That's the first thing you have to do. Then you have to figure out, okay, here's my number, here's what I have. This is what I'm getting from each of these entities. That's when you've got to come out and figure out what other funding options are available. You put that into your budgetary concerns, and you put that into your hopefully on your income side, the revenue side, and help build things that way. So that's the first thing you've got to do. You've got to be thinking down the road, and you have to do that to be able to live in the now. You understand that we're doing this here, this here, this here today, but this is what's coming down the road. You have to plan for those things. To be able to stay ahead of funding issues. There are things that are occurring right now with the budget. We don't know what they're going to do with the general fund.
Right.
But I believe strongly that whatever happens with the general fund will have an impact on the ETF. I have to think that way, and I have to have contingency plans based on that. So we have to be careful with moving forward. We're constantly thinking about that. We have to look at our local units. We have to see where we are on those local units. Is that essential? Yes, it is. We're going to keep it. We're going to figure out how to fund that. We're going to figure out, do we write a grant here? Do we do this here? There's so many options, and that comes with conversations. That comes with early conversations. A big assessment of, what our trends are. What are our trends from the time we became a system all the way up? What are the trends? And that goes back to your relationship with the city as well. You have to understand what the trends are there, see what's going on, to see what the growth is, because if the city grows and the school system doesn't know what's going on, that's going to impact us. We have to figure those things out. I think I went off on a tangent just a little bit without answering. I am what to do. Remember the ADHD thing. So.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper?
Back in February, you guys basically had a quote from Minnesota to do a virtual school or virtual classroom, I guess, that would allow students to take one class or all their classes from home, if you will, and even students outside the district can participate, which I think is a great idea. We've got a one-on-one initiative here, and we're doing a tremendous amount of things in the classroom. And so with those as kind of a background, have you had any experience incorporating technology in the classroom and ensuring teacher acceptance and use as a learning and teaching multiplier?
If we think of technology as a thing or something we can utilize, it's never going to be fully embraced. If we think and change the word and put an adjective in front and call it instructional technology, now you've flipped the dichotomy, so to speak, and you have another instructional weapon, so to speak, that teachers can use to engage kids in the learning process. We created a position at every one of our schools this year called the Instructional Technology Facilitator. I have been in education for 23 years. to that, I was a student, and I remember from the time that we went on our trip with the Oregon Trail, with the big 3.5-inch floppy disk on an Apple IIe, okay? There was no such thing at that time as a tech coordinator, which is a teacher who thought, let me see how this can help. We really kind of need to go back to that a little bit with the people at the schools being teachers who are instructional tech facilitators, because they're going to help those teachers figure out how to incorporate the technology into the great things they're already doing. Most of your resistance that you get from teachers is because I'm already doing great things and I don't really need that right there. And let me say this before I go off on a tangent. Balance is the key. We need to tell our 5 to 18-year-olds, put the device down and have a conversation face to face. You need to know how to have a business meal. You need to know how to have a business meeting. You need to know how to conduct business on the golf course. And none of that happens with, you can't Skype a golf date, okay? You can't do that. Well, somebody will prove me wrong, I get that, but nonetheless, we've got to teach the kids, put the device down and have a face-to-face conversation. And we've got to tell the adults sometimes, pick up the device and utilize it. And you do that when they have a low threat process. That's not a big threat to them. They can figure that out, and it comes really well. It comes better when it comes from someone who's been a colleague working with them. So it's been a wonderful success. We're actually we're taking our entire ITF team to Calhoun County on Monday. I'm excited about this. They are a BYOD district, and Superintendent up there, Joe Dyer, has done an excellent job of growing out and facilitating a BYOD to fidelity. Because the problem with BYOD is what do you do with the children that don't have the device? I get that. Well, that's the answer I don't get. So I'm going to see what they're doing over there. I'm going to White Plains, a little small community in Calhoun County who must be doing a pretty good job of that. So I'm going to go figure that out, and I'll bring it back and implement it in Hartsville if we can, if it'll help us figure out how to use those devices that these kids have. These things are far more powerful than the computers we've used at any given time. So we have to figure out how to leverage those things. The other thing is it can't be an option. It's not an option for teachers. You can't say, no, I'm never going to use a technology. Okay, I'm not going to do that. You have to have, that's one of those
Expectations.
yes, line in the sand, you've got to do that.
You guys get a pretty good response from the virtual classroom?
Virtual schools start this summer. Very excited about that.
Yeah.
Hartsville Virtual Academy. Athens is doing it. Florence is one of the early adopters. Janet Womack's doing a fabulous job up there. And I'm just constantly listening and trying to learn from what they're doing. Because if you steal from one person, it's called plagiarism. If you steal from a bunch, it's called research, okay? So I'm trying to research. It goes back to the former English teacher I worked with back here in the audience. If I can find out what they're doing and then bring the best parts and how's it going to fit wherever I am, in this case it's in Hartsville, and let's implement it. What you're going to find is going to be a blended model, Mr. Cooper. We're going to have students who are going to be taking 1 or 2 courses online. We'll have kids that will be taking 1 or 2 courses at home online. We'll have kids who will be taking 1 or 2 courses in a learning space in the school. I envision it being much more like a junior college campus at times, in learning spaces. And then we'll probably have a few students who will be completely online. Now, they'll still have to come in and take the test with us, and we'll also have a check and balance. And if they drop below a certain level, we're bringing them in. Because we're still in charge of those children. Sir?
I'm just curious, what role does the vendor have? Are they just the operational facilitator and the teachers actually teach?
They have the content. We have 2 options.
Oh, they have content?
They have the content. Edmondum there's a company called Plato. Plato has a long track record of online and digital coursework, which was compelling for us. And they've merged with this company, Edmondum. We looked at a lot of different companies. All of them offered wonderful this is just the one that fit for Hartsville at that particular time. And I think it's gonna be something that's good. We had a Hartsville Virtual Academy, meet and greet the other night. And I was proud, there were 5 students and parents in there who are homeschool students. And that's what I wanna offer. I wanna offer choice. We can do it. We can do it. It's not about, you have to come to the building every day. We can figure something else out on how to educate children. We just have to think outside the box because it's here. We have a great product at Hoover. Our kids are excelling at high levels. If you work with us, we'll work with you, you can excel at high levels too.
We're doing virtual classes already.
Madam President.
So that's good, that's commendable, that's great, thank you.
Well, your 3 main points, you talked about technology cannot be an option. And you also talked about how you interjected structural technology and facilitators within each school. Is that a must for the first, well, it can't be an option to work in each school?
I'm not sure I follow the question. Is it an option that an instructional technology facilitator at each school?
Now, did you say that about?
Yeah, we have one at each school.
Okay, well, we have 16 now. I'm going to give it Brian Phillips to see if we have that in each school.
Well, that goes back to Mr. Presley's.
We have 6.
That goes back to
Okay.
Mr. Presley's question. I can hire 6 teachers at $45,000 if I get somebody that's 5 years out of school. Then I add, let's see, when people don't understand, when you hire somebody at 45, you're also talking about the benefits. I know you find it. Okay, so you're talking about 70,000 times 6, 420,000. Didn't have it, don't have it. So here's what we did. I worked with the principals. I said, you are in charge of their schedule. Build in a 2-hour block every day. I will come up with a supplement because there'll be a 2-hour block where they have a class, and then there's extra work outside too. So it's much like a coach. We put a supplement in place. So I got 6 for a supplement of, I think it's $4,000. So I got 6 ITF instructors for $24,000 as opposed to $420,000.
But there's definitely a need.
With
if
the goal down the road,
Uh-huh.
when this economic worm turns and we are rolling in the money, I don't see that coming. Y'all might, if you do, let me know.
Right.
If it does, the economic, pendulum swings back, that would be the goal, yes, sir.
So if it can't be an option, because you can have a great idea, but without support, it can fail.
That's exactly right.
And when you're talking about technology, with that many teachers in each school, 17 schools, and you leave one without a technology coach or facilitator for a day, it can cause challenges.
It probably does.
Right. So if it can't be an option, is it destined to only achieve a 7% standard? I mean,
Well, I wouldn't.
achieving the rate, I mean.
I wouldn't roll out an option that wasn't 100%. If we were putting ITF, somehow we'd have to figure out how to do it in every school. I'm not saying do an ITF here. I'm simply saying that we have an ITF at Hartsville, and the option is the teachers don't have an option to utilize technology in the classroom. So absent an ITF, that's going to be happening from the principal and those teachers. One of the things that occurs in that regard is there's a movement afoot, and it's a good one, I think, of flattening your structure, your organizational structure. Too often, we don't utilize the leadership capacity that resides in the building. They're great teachers, walking around the buildings all day long, that have great ideas, who are never asked about them. I'm sure it doesn't happen in Hoover, but it does happen other places. And we need to utilize that leadership. Athens State, West Alabama, Sanford, great university, they're all offering master's degrees in teacher leadership. I was a teacher, loved it. Mr. Kruger was a teacher, Mr. Dodson was a teacher, Dr. Dodson, all these were great teachers. And you know what we did? The model's always been the same. Great teachers, hey, why don't you come be a great assistant principal? You've just taken a great teacher out of the classroom. Because his or her family is going to get a little involved in it. Well, hopefully, there's going to be a master's degree that will allow for teacher leaders. You might get a lead teacher in each grade, so to speak, that has a few more responsibilities and allows them to still teach and be on that front end. It's a brand new field, Mr. Murphy, and I really don't know what a good model would look like yet, but I think that's what's gonna happen. And that's the only way to answer your question. If you don't have enough funding to put an ITF in every school, it'd be very difficult to see how you would put an ITF. You'd have to do it in, maybe districts. You know, we have 17 schools, and I don't know what the, might put it from a Spain Park feeder pattern, Hoover feeder pattern. I don't know how they would do that. Again, that's how I'll have to look at it and see. But I think the teacher leadership aspect is huge. I really do. I think that's something that's going to be a big thing, to keep great teachers in the classroom by giving them opportunities and the requisite bump in salary that comes with it.
But if you had it your way, had the money, every school, instructional technology facilitator of the year,
Yes,
go.
sure would. And I will say this, our tech director, when I got hired, I wanted to meet with the technology department, and one guy showed up, and he was it. He was the tech for the whole system. So we hired him an assistant. And they're getting these great results with one technology guy. I mean, one guy, and they're just getting these great results. That speaks to the job the teachers were doing. I mean, they were doing a fabulous job. Well, now he has an assistant, and we have 6. This person is not a tech. This job is not to go in and fix something. They can troubleshoot and do minor things, but their job is not to take away and go and do an all-day fix. That's the technology department, that's IT. They're coming in and doing that. And Mr. Sutherland wants that. Brian would want that too. You don't want, this is a very expensive infrastructure. You want to make sure that you've got the proper people doing the big jobs on it. You forgot to turn the computer on, yeah, our ITS can help them with that. But, so that's something that discussion has to occur as well. How it's happening. Yes, sir.
In question 5, and I want to key in on these words right here, stretch goals that define exceptional performance. Now, you keyed in on talking about testing to the standards, things of that nature. But I think as a parent, for me, when you look at your child getting a particular grade, making this on the ACT, you're really looking at for them not to be on your payroll so many years after you got out of your home. So from that standpoint, we've been talking about education every single year, the problems of education. I mean, ever since it's been implemented in a sense. We read back articles over and over again. From a PR standpoint, and from a standpoint of changing that dynamic from, we're talking about grades to getting a career for our kids. I think that's the main topic. So from what would you consider to be a portion of the package being tied to a mutual agreement upon a stretch goal that define exceptional performance? Exceptional performance is not just a grade or a test.
I'd be willing to engage in the conversation. I would say that I would prefer the salary be the salary. My job as a superintendent is to provide excellence. Teachers do an excellent job every day, get great results. Principals do a great job every day, get great results. We generally do that because it's what we do. We want to be good at what we do. I'm afraid that incentive-laden contracts are a little bit of a slippery slope. I don't want to put anyone in a position, the board, superintendent, principals, of chasing after a number or a marker to get a carrot, so to speak. Whatever the stretch goals are, I would say those need to be articulated, and then we need to discuss those as salary package. Again, I'm not closing the door on that idea. I simply think the conversation needs to be clear from both parties that I'm not coming in just chasing after a goal. because you don't want that to be the focus. The focus is on the kids, the focus is on the learning. The focus is on a set of brothers, one of whom has a 59 at the progress report, and the other one has a 29 at the progress report. And at the end of the 9 weeks, the child with the 59 has a 61. The child that had the 29 moved all the way up to the 59. And yet one is a failure and one is passed. Well, anybody can see that the last 4.5 weeks, the growth occurred in the young man that's still failing. So that's the fallacy of a goal, or a stretch goal, so to speak. The learning occurred far at greater levels with that second child. And yet because of some, I'm not calling it arbitrary because they've been around for a long time, but none of us know why they are. You know, we don't know what the 100-point scale. You know, the 100-point scale comes back, and I'm sure that Colonel Mr. Lotta back there can tell you that's a military indicator from the 1890s. Goes back, I think, to ASVAB and stuff like that. So, and yet we're still using it in education. So I'm very leery, so to speak, of stretch goals because of situations like that. You can go and take a bunch of children who are right at 58, 59 and work very hard and get them to 61. And there's not a lot of difference. And yet I've met the goal. So that would be something that it would be a long conversation, so to speak. Because I really think we need to be focused on the learning of the children and
Well, let me see if I can expand the existing conversation. The easiest thing to do is focus on data points. Data points are really easy to achieve when you've got the ACT suite of assessments and outcomes and plan 20, all that kind of data. That's pretty straightforward. And clearly, if closing the learning gap and improving performance by students, you're going to always have to rely on that data. And frankly, that's a piece of your job that's a given.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's a given. But what we were talking about, as we conjured up these questions, is a much bigger picture. For example, you talked about how important it was for kids to celebrate everything. And we talked a little bit about extracurricular activities, how important they were, whether it's athletics, arts, or whatever. Perhaps there's a goal that says, so we want to have 85% of the student population engaged in some form of extracurricular activity, because if they're engaged in something they like to do that's affiliated with the school, they're going to have a positive experience here. If they're having a positive experience in extracurricular, it may just transfer into the classroom. Flip it back over. You're exactly right. You know, hard data-driven goals create a slippery slope for, depending on how they're done, because you come in here like a steamroller going for the golden ring, right, and and roll over everybody en route and punish them and hold them accountable for it. Well, on the balancing side of that component is the stakeholder survey. You know, if we survey students, teachers, faculty, staff, community about your performance overall, that will be reflected. So, you know, and as a leader, nobody's sitting here thinking you would be the steamroller, you know. And that's why the conversation is such that, you know, we're going to make a decision on you or whomever, but we'd love to have you have a little skin in the game too.
I would definitely expect that to certainly work.
So that's the only reason.
No, I would definitely, yeah, that's why I say it would.
It'd be a good conversation.
It'd be a great conversation.
It's not designed to pin you up. It's not designed to or cut you up rather, and it's not designed to, you know, to create an atmosphere of angst among employees, because you're going to go after everything you can get a hold of to deliver on this stretch goal. Not at all. It's just the ironical thing, the way this whole deal started, was what could we do to acknowledge your performance, and your exceptional performance? You're going to be picked because you're the one, because you were confident you're going to do a good job. But what if you did a great job? You know, that, and all of a sudden you've got these metrics. Well, we can say, oh, he's a great American, man. He did a great job. Look what he's done. Well, you're still drawing the same paycheck you drew at the beginning of the year. However, if you did do a good job and everything correlated based upon a mutual agreement, you could come out way ahead.
I'm
And-
very willing to engage in that conversation.
So it's not designed it's not designed in the common mindset of focusing on gymnastic schools.
Mr. Presley?
Mr. Frazier, my last question had to do with some examples of how Dr. Wilson would have been personally involved in leading the process to implement and develop a school budget, and I'm satisfied he answered that question with my last question, number 2, dealing with balanced budget.
Mr. Cooper?
I gotta shut up. This is a softball, I'm ready for you to knock out the park, but this is you. What are some of the ways you would be a visible figure within the community for students and parents alike? To see your involvement and participation in the community and not just sit in the office.
Wow. I love being around the kids. I really do. I mean, that's, you know, when I left Arley, Alabama a long time ago, I went to University of Alabama. I was going to be a lawyer.
You left the free state of Winston?
I left the free state of Winston County, that's correct, Arley, Alabama. Went to University of Alabama, and I was majoring in English and history, and I was just going to be a lawyer. And after the first semester, I switched to accounting. Again, this is, you know, I really wasn't planning on going to Alabama either, but I did. I was going to go to UNA and walk on and play football. Mother said, if you go to Alabama, I'll get you an apartment. I said, roll tide. I'll go. Full disclosure here. So I go down there, and really, you know, first generation to go to college and all that kind of stuff. And my college roommates were going to be accountants. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I switched to accounting, realized I didn't really know how to add very well. So I'm kidding, of course, but I didn't like it. I didn't feel called or compelled, or I really didn't feel like that was what I needed to do. So I had a conversation with Dad. I said, Daddy, I don't really want to be a lawyer or an accountant. And he said, look, I've been a coal miner all my life and made a good living, but I didn't like going to work every day. He said, so just do something you love to do. And I said, okay, I want to be a teacher and coach. And that's what I've done. And each step up takes you further away from being with the kids and being around your colleagues. So I'm very intentional about being in the schools. I'm very intentional about being out in the community. I go to whatever event we have, I'm going to be attending as many events as I possibly can, much to the chagrin of my wife and children. Thankfully now they're involved in those things, and I can go see those things as well. But that's just what I love to do. I'm a, you know, part of the only way you can truly be a servant leader is to be out there seeing exactly what it is that they're going through on a day-to-day basis. I need to go out there and experience it and see it. I need to see the differences. My only real experience with an elementary school in Hoover is Bluff Park. So I've got this view that all of them are just wonderful, great places in the history of the world, and there are no problems. I know, but some people, I need to see that from everybody else too. So I need to see how they're wonderful in different ways. So that's just what I'm going to do.
Plus, it's probably the fun part of the job.
It is the funnest part of the job. My best days are those days when I've been out in the buildings, seeing kids do things. If I've sat behind the desk all day long, I've not had a good day. And you know how I judge that. I get my iPhone out, I hit that little heart app and see how many steps I've taken. And if I'm under 10,000 steps, I've been in the office way too long. So, and
So there's your goal right there.
that's exactly, that is my goal, and I'm trying to get to that. And you know, we only have one school that has any stairs, and it's I go up and down the stairs in that school a lot.
We'll teach you.
So yeah, that's something that, you know, if anything, people will say he's never in his office, but I am in my office. I try to find a balance on that too.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Wilson, that concludes our questions for this evening. But now for you, do you have Any questions for the board at this time?
I actually have two questions, okay? And it's a simple question, and it's for each of you. What's the best thing about Hoover? That's the
Kelly, I
first.
started last time on that one.
Said you, Jared. You had that.
I don't want to answer the same thing I answered yesterday, but,
Can we answer the same thing we did last time?
I didn't
Did
hear
you
last.
read the?
it's a, not a one word, but it's a great system, in a great city. And you have a lot of people that have been there for years that their kids come back to. Everybody embraces, the school system from the standpoint of all the organizations that we have to support it, from Hoover Foundation to the Rotary Club to the Chambers of Commerce, scholarships. Folks are very creative into the school system, business community as well. Our city council is very active. As you can see, we consistently have at least one or two council members here, truly diverse. And I have to make this point, Mountainbrook wants to be like Hoover. I just want to throw it out there. I made a couple of statements about Mountainbrook. I want to throw it out there.
And not just basketball.
I'll be glad to, I'll be more than happy to answer just like I did last night. No doubt about it, it's the people. It's the teachers, it's the administrators, it's the students, it's the parental involvement. That's what I like about this city and what makes it great, and our school system great.
I'll say, I don't even remember what I said last night, so you know I've had.
Few drinks.
No. Not hell. Anyway, just an unselfish community. Everything revolves around our children. I don't care who you are, if you're an aunt, uncle, grandfather, even if you don't have children. Very interesting in the surveys we did to the public, 45% of the people have not had a child in this district. Either retired, and they put input in there as to how important our schools are. It's easy when you've got the child that's a senior, you're concerned that's their senior year. I understand it, I've had 3 go through it, but just to genuinely see the interest of everyone. Go to the ballparks. I've been to so many awards banquets, scholar banquets, Finley Award Committee. The spirit is all out there, it all revolves around children, so that's where we are.
I would say opportunities for every child are phenomenal here, probably more so than any school I'm aware of. Not that I'm that magnanimous about schools, but the opportunities are magnified by incredible personal commitment on the part of administration, faculty, staff, coaches, you name it. And then it's multiplied one more time by outstanding facilities, outstanding technology, and just the whole scope of what kids can do here and learn here.
And Dr. Wilson, I'll answer just like I did last night, everything. I mean, I've lived in Hoover, my husband and I have lived in Hoover for over 30 years. 3 children have gone through this school district, and I can't tell you anything negative about this district because there's so many positive things that are going on. And just because we have, I don't know how many people here tonight, that's no reflection because we're live streaming this. And so I was very excited. Brian, how many people have watched?
Tonight, we're up to about 25 on one, I don't know the others.
Okay.
But the Monday night is up to over 500 on watch it.
So basically, that excites me that people do not feel like they have to come to listen to you or the other finalists that we have, but they're sitting in their living rooms or at their kitchen table watching these interviews. So a lot of positive things going on in this district. And I'll be honest, are you sure you want to leave Hartselle? You said so many wonderful things
It's a
about
wonderful
Hartselle
place.
tonight.
It is. I mean, it's one of those deals, you're never sure you want to leave a place that you've grown to love. But when you lived in a place that you've loved for 16 years, that kind of wins out in that regard. So you just mentioned so many things. You all mentioned something. You mentioned the diversity. You mentioned friends. I have, so many friends that have sent me I had to turn my phone off because of the well wishes today. And that's so meaningful right there. So yeah. And my last question is, why did you become a board member?
That's a great question.
I gotta ask that.
I'll start, for personal reasons. I had, just finished a bout with cancer, and my community gave so much to my 3 girls. My oldest was a senior in high school, and I had a middle schooler and then a younger high school child. And my oldest daughter was getting ready to go off to college at Pepperdine in Malibu, California. And, the timing was just not right. And I felt like that because of my community, the school community, everyone wrapped their hands around my husband and my 3 daughters and got me through my bout with cancer. And so when it was finished up, I made a commitment that I was going to give back in a big way to the community that had supported me. And 10 years later, I'm in my 10th and final year. I'll finish at the end of May. I've headed up a lot of organizations and done a lot. It's the most worthwhile thing I've ever done in my entire life, and it's because of the children. Garden clubs, all that kind of stuff, great and wonderful. But the thing I guess most about the school board, people are passionate about their children, and they do get upset with us from time to time, but I would be disappointed if they didn't get upset, because you're dealing with people's children day in and day out. So that's the reason for me, and some challenges along the way, but no regrets whatsoever, and I'm gonna miss it.
Well, congratulations on your team.
Thank you.
The same with me personally. Dan Fulton was worked with my grandmother in the same high school, and I was adopted. My brother and I was adopted by our grandparents, and I remember her wanting us to have the best education we could possibly have. So she went back to work, working on feeding the cafeteria, put us through high school, a private school, and I never gave her one problem, because working 30 years on your feet with pots and pans to make sure your grandbabies, which are babies, that's what you call them, get a great education is a worthwhile thing. And that's why I just jumped on the opportunity to give back any way I possibly can to our kids. You know, we have so many creative teachers, and when they think of an idea, they blush of just so much passion for what they do. Who would not want to be a part of a place like the system? So that's my opinion.
Very, very similar. I had the opportunity through my 12 years of education to attend an incredible school system. My mom was part of that as a teacher, so I got to see a lot of both sides of how that works, from being a student, from being the son of a teacher. We moved to Hoover, and I've had one daughter that's graduated here. I've got one that will graduate this year, and I've got another one that's in the 9th grade. And I've seen what it means to be a part of this community. I've seen what it means to be a part of this system. My daughter sings in the choir at Mississippi State. The choir director does not call her by her name. He calls her Hoover. That speaks volumes, and I wanted to have the opportunity to give back and try to ensure that all the students that will come through the system have the same opportunity that mine did.
Probably 4 reasons. One, somebody asked if I'd consider it. Number 2, I live with an educator who is very gifted, and has taught me a lot in that regard before I took on the school board responsibility. Thirdly, I felt that based upon some of my experiential learning, could make a difference. And probably the biggest thing I think that's been important to me, and where I think I've contributed, is the fact that I didn't come in this job with an agenda. Only about the kids.
It's hard to go last when you share most of what was here. A city government had confidence enough to ask me to participate in part of one of the other boards on the city, and that meant a lot to me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. They gave me the opportunity to do this. I don't know how many people, anyone in there was given the opportunity to help your school system that would say no. It's a lifelong learning process, so it is very important to be able to return what you're asked to return. So just having the confidence, and again, a lot of people can't do this because of the time commitments, and I understand that. But anybody I talk with, if they say Mr. to me, I'll tell them I'm not Mr., I'm you. You know, we all want to go.
Thank y'all very much. Is
That concludes, Dr. Wilson. Normally, the candidates get a 30-minute break, but since you've been talking,
I
we've been
apologize.
talking for almost 2 hours, no, not at all. Can we take just a short break, and
Please.
then there will be a meet and greet upstairs, and everyone here is welcome to go upstairs in the tech room. We'll set about 20 minutes, how about that? Thank you.